Good afternoon, everyone. TEDx is about ideas worth sharing, so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come along and share some of the thinking that lies behind our new museum here in Exeter. This isn't intended as an advert for the Royal Albert Memorial Museum, or RAM as we're known, though of course we do hope you'll visit, but instead to reflect on some of the ideas that reshaped the museum for a new century. This is the story of the transformation of a museum into a home to a million thoughts. We are, of course, home to more than a million objects, but we are also home to a million thoughts. Yours, mine, and those of almost 500,000 visitors so far. Firstly, a few words about our own history. RAM opened in 1868 as a three-dimensional encyclopedia of the world. In an age of empire, innovation and radical social change, this was about bringing the world to Exeter and creating educational opportunities for the local population. Interestingly, the university here in Exeter and the arts faculty at the University of Plymouth both began their lives under the same roof as our museum. The early museum was funded through local subscription rather than a single philanthropist, and the sense of local ownership this engendered remains strong today. This is a museum that belongs to the people of Exeter and Devon, and that's felt very strongly. Now, mostly when you work in museums, you inherit displays done by your predecessors. And occasionally, if you get lucky, you get to redo a gallery. But that's often as part of a piecemeal approach. This project was going to be rather different. It was on a much larger scale involving the whole museum, so it was a tremendous professional privilege. However, the opportunity to undertake a major project like this is double-edged. On one hand, you're dealing with something that's very precious, loved and owned by people, and it gave rise to a frequently asked question during our closure. It's great that you've got this investment, but you're not going to spoil the museum, are you? So if you get it wrong, you can get yourself into terrible trouble. On the other hand, it's a unique opportunity and rare chance to refresh, reposition and update the museum for a new age. So what were the big questions we asked as we set out on this journey? Some were pretty fundamental about our core purpose and our relationship with audiences. Extensive user and non-user research helped inform some of the answers, but others required a whole set of cold, wet flannels applied to our foreheads. Two key questions were, what was the role of museum collections in the information age when so much is so readily available online or via other media? Secondly, how did we expect visitors to benefit from their visit? In answer to the second question, we concluded that the museum was still at its core true to its origins, a place of learning, but learning as we understand it in the 21st century, in much broader definition. It's about personal growth and development, inspiration and creativity. It's about helping people make bespoke connections to a mix of facts, experience, interest and memories. So this was quite different from the more prescriptive approach envisaged by the museum's founders, and indeed much of the 20th century, when museums' big failings were to try and be a book on walls. Placing ourselves in competition with the internet and libraries was futile. Instead, following a reductive process, we concluded that in essence, we wanted visitors' ways of seeing the world to be in some way enriched, whether this was how they perceived, felt or thought about the world. So we agreed that we would be as open as possible to the range of thoughts that might result. We would be an interpretive guide if our visitors required it, but we wouldn't try to dictate the learning messages that they would take away with them. Their ideas and thoughts inspired by the collections were as relevant as our professional ones, and it led ultimately to our new strapline, RAM, home to a million thoughts. At RAM, as I've said, we're home to over more than 1 million objects, but our strapline refers to the spark, the thoughts and the interactions that happen when a human mind encounters a real object. In this lay the answer to our first question. It's about the authentic article. The real thing possesses qualities and magic that cannot be replicated on the internet. The genuine object exerts a unique power and impact that means the original, the beautiful, and the special will always hold value in our lives. However, the web can tell us things about how we learn outside formal education. We graze information, we discard, we select, and we compile facts in ways that are entirely personal to us, mashing and repurposing that information to create something that is very relevant and very meaningful to each of us. So what are the implications for redisplaying the museum? First of all, it means rethinking the encyclopedia or the taxonomic structure, which in museums tends to be expressed as galleries devoted to particular curatorial specialisms. Instead, we wove those histories together to create narratives, clear narratives, one about the history of Devon and Exeter, and the second about the city's world collections and the role of specific collectors in bringing collections together. Unlocking the collections from the structure in this way allowed us to create some surprising juxtapositions and connections between different objects and different materials. And this started to produce the freer, more inclusive learning experience and enrichment we hope to achieve. These are the light bulb moments, sometimes 150 watts, at other times a chandelier of 5-watt twinkles. They're the individual moments of magic, a phrase that the Art Fund judges were kind enough to use when describing RAM as a place of enchantment. Now, we all know that unpicking magic is a dangerous thing to do. It can evaporate before you. But in thinking about how it was conjured, we realised that the critical ingredients were in the original brief to the architects and the exhibition designers. There we said that our themes would be about people, identity and knowledge, and our methods would be about story, spectacle and rhythm. Ours was always a collections-led project. RAM has fantastic, internationally important collections which we wanted to show off, to create rich, intense and beautiful displays on the basis that the eye has to be engaged first and then the mind follows. I've often said that this project was about allowing the collection to shine. And for the museum team, this meant working with the personality of the museum rather than trying to superimpose a particular instrumental message. And we also wanted to create a range of experiences, some of which were quite theatrical and immersive. And that was about the rhythm, that it sort of alternates with places which are quite contemplative. We wanted to create a stimulating environment which would provoke not just individual thought, but conversations and exchanges. A social shared space for family, friends and strangers, mixing socially and coming together. And of course, in this guise, museums occupy a really important and almost unique civic role in their towns and cities. That it's where lots of people come together, regardless of age, economic background or their educational background, and share the same experience. But most of all, we wanted to create displays and interpretive devices that allowed room for delight, humour, surprise, and other emotions. Now, why was this important? Because real learning, in all the forms I've described, happens when it touches our core. That's when we recover the sense of wonder in the world, in these moments of individual discovery. For me, a guiding principle were the words from a Nobel Award-winning chemist, Albert Szent-Györgyi, who wrote, "Discovery consists of looking at the same thing as everyone else and thinking something different." So when an early visitor wrote in our visitor book, this felt less like visiting a museum and more like a personal journey of discovery, we couldn't have asked for more. The joy of discovery is itself magic. It enriches the quality of our lives and helps us to grow as communities and individuals. Our project was never about reinventing RAM. It was about transforming it for a new age, enabling moments of discovery by linking our historical inheritance with the potential of the future. Seeding ideas in a home to a million thoughts feels like a very appropriate purpose for a 21st century museum, using the past to inform and understand the present and the future. Thank you very much.